Hi, inside the Arizona Republican AZ Central newsroom. I'm Richard Rellis here with columnist Bob Robb, you've been through the report now, at least most of it. What are your takeaways out of this thing?
Well, given that there was nothing found to the narrative that the Trump campaign conspired with the Russians to influence the outcome of the election, one could argue that this investigation never should have taken place. But given how much the country was gripped by that narrative and divided and roiled by that narrative, the thoroughness of the investigation, I think, is of great benefit. Every possible theory about how Trump and or his campaign could have conspired with the Russians was thoroughly investigated, and the results and the lack of any actual coordination laid out plainly. So at least that part of this whole political dispute should be put to bed, and I think that's a public service.
And not to get too thick in the weeds, although you love the weeds, it seems like part one, there's a distinction between coordination, collusion, and what they seem the legal theory was whether there was a conspiracy.
Well, the report says that the term collusion doesn't have a definition in criminal statute. So they looked at whether there was a conspiracy or whether there was coordination. Well, coordination meets the common understanding of what the word collusion. That was just lawyers being lawyers. But they found no evidence and stated that they found no evidence that there was any coordination between Trump, his campaign, and the Russian attempts to influence our election.
Let's move to part two, which is the obstruction part. Are there some nuggets in there you think warrant further stories or further investigation by Congress or somebody?
That is the part of the report that will accelerate and intensify the controversy and the political divide over the president's behavior with respect to the investigation. The report is highly censorious of the president's behavior.
You'll have to look up censorious on your own. But it gets to his mindset.
Well, you start with his behavior, and it documents numerous occasions in which the president tried to limit or put a stop to the investigation. Well, from a law enforcement official standpoint, that's obstruction. That's keeping us from doing our job. And it's not a full exoneration on that point, the way that the Trump folks have spun it. There will be a large number of people who would agree, yeah, you have an investigation, you ought to leave it alone. On the other hand, the fact that it was an investigation that arguably shouldn't have been launched and found nothing, I think provides a broader context and makes it, in many people's mind, more understandable that the president would say, hey, that is a witch hunt, and I ought to do something to stop or limit the witch hunt. So that part, I think, will stimulate even more controversy. I think the collusion story gets put to bed. The obstruction of justice story finds new legs.
So as the Attorney General was ready to release the report, he mentioned that you need to sort of put yourself in President Trump's mindset as someone who knows he didn't do this crime and is upset that the investigation is continuing, and you see some merit. He was criticized by a lot of legal experts as he said that, but you see some understanding of that.
I do believe that that is a broader context in which a lot of people, including me, will react to the reports of the president's behavior. Barr, however, implied that was also a finding that the special counsel made, and that is not the case. The special counsel finds, in terms of motive, a desire to shut down their activity and their work, and through direct and indirect means, influence the willingness of witnesses to cooperate with their investigation.
I don't know how many people will actually read the report. Do you recommend that people actually take the time to read this thing?
If people, yes, this has been the political story that has gripped the country since the end of the 2016 election, and particularly on the items that have been mentioned as evidence that, oh, Trump's in cahoot with the Russians. It is very comprehensive and very impartial and fair-minded. I actually give the special counsel's office, which has received enormous criticism from the right, a lot of credit. I think that this document does a public service in providing a thorough account of the political controversy that's gripped the country for 2 years.